So I have not made one of these clips in a while where I've just been responding to some student questions. I'd put out a crap load of these on the YouTube playlist here. If you check exam guidance, there's literally like 350 videos, there's got to be, of me just answering questions about UWorld, NBMEs, how to prepare, etc. And then what happens is I put out a clip on X topic, and then 36 hours later, some students like, hey, can you make a clip on X topic? I'm like, cool, did that like a day and a half ago. So I think I had entered this sort of a mundane routine where I felt like I was answering the same dumb shit repeatedly. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not about me. It's just about if I answer some important questions that you guys have about USMLE, rather than referring you back to the same clip constantly that I made 4 months ago, 6 months ago, etc. I recognize that in 2022, people only really look back at like the latest 3 or 4 videos in someone's YouTube, right? Like there's the playlists, of course, they're there. The information stays relevant, but occasionally making updated clips is fine. So someone asked me, Mike, I've been reading on Reddit that people are saying the exam is more like UWorld over the NBME. Can you talk about that? Should I be scared not doing UWorld late, as you've talked about, and focusing on the NBMEs instead? And as I prefaced with, I've addressed this type of question innumerable times to the point of exhaustion in the past, where the real deal, step 1 and step 2, it's the NBME exam. It's the same as the NBME exams and the Clinical Mastery Series, the NBME subject-specific forms for 2CK. The real exam is not UWorld, okay? I've inculcated that point. So you're going to go into the real exam. It's going to look like UWorld. Same colors, calculator, lab values. The interface is the same as the free 120. All right. So it's going to look like free 120. It's going to look like UWorld. So psychologically sort of makes sense that people are going to walk out and say, oh my God, exam was just like UWorld. Well, no shit. It looked like UWorld. But the questions are the NBME ones superimposed into that UWorld interface. That's the exam. So when you go and take the step 1, it's going to be a hypothetical NBME 31, 32. When you take the step 2, it's going to be a hypothetical NBME 12 and 13, okay? / Clinical Mastery Series forms 7, 8, etc. if they existed. I mean, if you, for the step 2, the Clinical Mastery Series, the NBME subject-specific forms, if you just throw those into a random mode instead, you would be getting an NBME 13, 14, 15, etc. Okay, that's what those forms are. So the importance of reiterating these points that the exam is the same as the NBME, the real deal is the same as the NBMEs / CMS forms, rather than that it's just like UWorld, the actual practicality that gives you some value is that in terms of your final studying, recognize that your greatest shot of a final score augmentation going to the real deal is reviewing the NBME exams. I mean, they're essentially archived exams, okay, from the real deal. The questions repeat. I took the step 1 a decade ago in 2012, and for whatever fucking reason, the anatomy questions from my real deal from the step 1 are the same ones that are on offline NBME 24 right now, okay? Why that's the case? No fucking idea, but they're the same questions. So that's how it is. I mean, people will go in, come out, and they'll say, oh, I had like 3 repeats. I had like 10 plus repeats. So it's variable. The same way you say, well, how much biochem am I going to get? How much pharm am I going to get? Well, it's variable, right? Some people say, I studied biochem really hard. It was a waste of fucking time. I had no biochem. Other people get lots of molecular and biochem stuff. So it's hard to predict the exact number of repeats. When I do Skype sessions with students and I send students offline questions that repeat on the new NBMEs, for instance, I mean, they might get the questions wrong on the NBME exam when they sit it X number of weeks later. And I'm like, I sent you that fucking question like 3 weeks ago. Do you remember? They're like, no. And I'm like, I sent it to you and it repeated on the exam. So I articulate that to reiterate that, even if you see repeats on the real deal, you might not even realize it. Okay. Especially if you got questions correct, you're not going to retain or remember that you even saw those questions before. So in the 2 weeks prior to your real deal in particular, you really need to go hard on memorizing the NBME content. NBMEs 20 through 30 for step 1, as well as for 2CK 6 through 11 and all the CMS forms. You want to go hard on that content, and you want to go hard on my PDFs as well. I have different PDFs for the step one. You really want to make sure you know high yield arrows cold. Some students have felt that that PDF is overwhelming. I understand it is a difficult PDF to go through, but recognize that compared to large superfluous tomes like FA, for instance, going through my high yield arrows PDF is not very complicated or lengthy or taxing. Okay, it's not very fastidious. It's not going to take you that long compared to going through first aid, right? So you want to know high yield arrows PDF cold for step one. And for step two, I mean, I have the subject-specific PDFs, PEDS, OBS, Gynae, etc. They're all very helpful. So that's how you're going to tackle the final couple of weeks, making sure you know the NBME content cold, you know my PDFs cold, and having the mental conviction, having the alleviation, and that not focusing on UWorld during those final couple of weeks, you're in a better spot focusing on the NBME content because that's the real deal. Okay, everything helps. Studying for the exams like a Venn diagram. If you only studied UWorld, if you only studied my PDFs, if you only studied FA or Pathoma, okay, everything's going to help in a different way. But when we discuss maximal score augmentation, when we discuss what's going to increase the probability of you achieving that maximal score augmentation, it's going to come down to reviewing the NBME content. Okay, so when I develop broad umbrella type discussion points around how could we increase the scores of most students without meeting with someone personally, when I make a very generic YouTube clip such as this one, it's the NBME content. Okay, so I inculcate these points to the point of exhaustion because they need to be understood and internalized by students. Okay, the NBME content, that's how you're going to increase your score as much as possible. How about I just end this fucking clip? It's been a lengthy clip, right? I don't need to make like 24-minute YouTube clips on this. But you know the deal. I'm going to continue to make more content. If you like my stuff, subscribe to my channel. And I appreciate your time. That's it.